Eriko, niaje? Mezeeka siku hizi maana nana ndevu.
you are good to go. Over to you, Maureen.
All right, thank you so much, Eric. Just a minute.
You are good to go. Over to you, Maureen.
Hey guys, sorry about that. I think there was some issues with my audio connection. Yeah, but I'm good now. Hi guys, welcome to our IO Extended, and really excited to having you here with us, and really excited to learn as well, because we know that Google announced some updates in May in regards to Flutter 3 and everything that revolves around it. And we are so excited today to invite 3 speakers. That's Danvik, Magdalene, Luke, and Samia, who are going to share with us these updates in details. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So I'm just going straight ahead to introduce our co-organizers in order not to waste so much time. So first we'll go with Kendi. Please do a quick intro of yourself for our audience.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining our event. My name is Kendi. I am a co-organizer for Flutter Kenya, and besides that, I am also a Flutter engineer at Bridge.money. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kendi. Really excited to having you here. Next, we'll go with Eric. Please do a brief intro of yourself.
Awesome. Hi everyone. My name is Muli Eric. I'm also the co-organizer for Flutter Kenya, and apart from that, I'm a software engineer at a company called Quasar Technologies. Thank you. Back to Maureen.
All right, thank you, and nice to have you. Next, I'll go with Sam Baraka. Please do a quick intro of yourself to those who are watching from the StreamYard or those who have joined the Zoom call. Now you know, if anything goes wrong with the stream, we know who to blame. Thank you so much, Sam. Really excited to having you here. And I think we have Isaac. So Isaac, if you're in the call, you can do a quick intro of yourself. Not sure if he's here. Can't see him. Yeah, I think Isaac is not here, right?
Yeah, sure, he's not around.
Okay, cool. No worries. Then lastly, I'll introduce myself. My name is Maureen Josephine. I'm a software engineer and a Flutter GDE. Let me just accept this one. Okay, cool. My name is Maureen Josephine. I'm a software engineer and also a Flutter GDE, and really excited to having you here. And today we also have it's like a 3-hour call, but within the call we have some activities. So stay tuned, and you never know, you might win something in our breakout session. So the one in charge of that will introduce it when the right time comes. But right ahead, I'm going to give it back to Eric, who is our moderator, to introduce our first speaker.
Awesome. Thank you, Maureen. That was quite a good introduction for both the speakers and the organizers. So our first speaker is Danvik. Danvik is also a co-organizer for Flutter Kenya. Is also in the team that organizes DreadCon KE, and is in the team also that does organize Android 254. So I don't want to give a lot of introduction about himself. I think I'll allow him to add more to that. So Danvik, you're free to go. Over to you, Danvik.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so as Eric said, my name is Danvik. I am the CTO at Infinitysoft, and I'm also a co-organizer in DroidCon KE and Flutter Developers Kenya. So let me see if I can share my screen. I'm not sure. Do I have permission to share my screen?
Yes, you do. You can share your screen.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's no one who's present.
Just give me a second. No, it's, okay. So I'm hoping you can see my screen.
Yeah, sure, you can see it.
Okay, thank you. So maybe I'll talk about myself when I'm done, but today I'm going to take us through that 2.17. Let's just we'll just be seeing what's new. By the end of the talk, I think maybe you'll be able to understand the features that have come in the new version of that, and feel confident if you haven't upgraded to Flutter 3.0 or that 2.17. You'll feel free and confident enough to migrate and to explore the new features. So this the new version of that 17. The theme for this release has been productivity and platform portability, which, as we are going to discuss the new changes that are coming, you'll see like the main things will be productivity. So the new there are three, basically you can categorize the changes into three categories. There are new language features for improved productivity. There are different productivity tools that have been added, tools for just making sure that you are most productive in using that. And also there's platform support. With the team has broadened platform integration and support. So in terms of language features, we have enhanced Enums, and I don't know if it's Enums or Enums. So Enums with member functions, with member properties. Let me say member properties because it involves other things other than functions. Then we have super initializers, and we have named arguments. Basically, you can declare named arguments anywhere. And we're going to see that during the course of this presentation. So I'll start with enhanced enums. So enums are good for representing discrete states. Let's say there's a state like gender, which can be either male, female, or other. If it's maybe, for example, in an example of let's say a school setup, we can have grades, which can either be A, B, C, D, or E, depending on how the grades are defined. Now, prior to that 2.17, you could only use extensions to add more functionality. Let's say, for example, in our example of a grade, let's say we have each grade corresponds to a point. So I want to show grade A has this number of points, grade B has this number of points. How would I do it in using an enum? The other alternative would have been to create a whole class that has all that functionality. But enums are great because they're actually you're self-defining. You're defining everything, every discrete set ahead of time, which is actually very advantageous. The disadvantage of using extensions is that you must keep the extension in sync with the enum. If you make a change in the enum, you have to also make sure that you upgrade or you make the change to the extension, the corresponding extensions. So the feature that has come in the new version is enum with members, and the members can either be field, which can be holding state, which can hold state. We have constructors that can be used to set that state. The fields in an enum must be final. All fields, all attributes must be final. Then we have methods for functionality. Let's say, for example, we want to, in our example of a grade, we want to know whether this grade is a pass grade or a fail grade. So we may create a method that does exactly that. And we can also override existing member functions, like, for example, to string or equality or anything like that that are defined in that objects. So here's an example of the old way of working with extensions. So we have defined a grade here named, an enum here named grade, and it has the grades A, B, C, D, and E. So first of all, for you to get the points that correspond to a grade, I've created a getter of points, which I go through the different enums, and for each grade I'll define the number of points that correspond to that grade. So this is it. And in case there's no, in case the grade is not, the points are not defined for that grade, then it will throw an exception. For example, and we have here also a function that will determine whether this student maybe has passed, or this grade is a pass grade or a fail grade. So in this example, we are using is pass. So if the points are greater than 1, basically if you have a D, C, B, or A, that is a pass, and else you are failed. So basically this is how we define, and we've also defined a function here that will basically print out a string. So I think I can just do a short demo, and we can understand why it is advantageous for us to use the disadvantage basically of member function of extensions. So let's say we have this. We have enum with the extensions, and we have this grades as defined. Let's say we add a new enum value, which is grade F. So if we have grade F and we haven't upgraded, we haven't made changes to the extension method, basically this is our extension, this is our extension for the grade. You'll see that if I try to run this, basically, if I try to run this function, sorry. So if I try to run this function with the new grade added without updating the number of points, if I try to run it, it will, sorry, maybe I haven't. This can be moved. Okay. So basically, if I add a new grade, I have to also make sure that I add grade F here and make sure that I return. Let's say, for example, grade F is for a student who has not done the exam, basically, and they're supposed to get maybe they're supposed to get a zero points. If I don't define it here, then by default, it will throw the exception because I've added a new grade and I haven't defined its points. So basically, that's why we said in the presentation that when using extensions, you must keep in sync. We must keep the extension in sync with the enum. So in any changes in the enum, you have to also make changes in the extension function. So I think that is a short example. Let's just go back to, let's now see how we can use the new way, basically, which is member functions. So right now, an enum can have members. So we say a member can be either a property, a constructor, a function, or I can even override the functionality of the object itself, which is the enum. So this, like, as you can compare, if you can compare this with the previous, code, you can see that productivity-wise, the number of lines of code that you would have written are actually less, and I can be able to do everything in one place. Also, if we can also do a short demo, now that you insist, if we can do also a short demo here, is that if I want, for example, if I'm using enum with member functions, if I add a new grade here, let's say grade F, which is worth 0 points, I don't need to upgrade. I don't need to change anything else, and the functionality of the app will remain the same. Let's say, for example, I add here grade F, and run. So we can see that grade F has already been assigned, and we can know it's a pass because it's 0. And if we did the same in extensions, let's say, for example, we want to check the points for grade F, and I haven't defined, basically I haven't changed anything on the extension, then that means that my code will fail, which you can see here. It will be a non-grade. So I have to come back again and make sure that when I have upgraded, and I also come here and copy this and paste and put everything in order. So that means I have 2 places to change before the app works. And this now will actually work. So back to our presentation. So the next thing we're going to look at is super initializers. So in most languages, there's inheritance, which is just a form of hierarchy between different classes. And in some instances, you need to pass the parameters of the child class to the parent. So the old way in that would be to list each parameter in the child constructor. Let's say, for example, the method you're defining extends, let's say, widget or it extends stateless or stateful widget. You need to define a super that will pass, let's say, for example, the key to the super constructor. And now, instead of doing, first of all, you have to list the key in your constructor, and then the next you need to invoke the super constructor and pass the parameters to it. So that is like some more extra lines of code that you need to add for you to do that functionality and to pass the values to the parent class. The new way is actually, instead of doing all these lines of code, you just do super dot, then the name of the extension. Let's say, for example, super dot key. If you're passing the key to the extended to the stateless or stateful widget, that makes this reduces the number of lines, because instead of writing 2 lines here, and in fact more than 2, because you'll have to write at least, let's say, 3 lines, you can just replace it with 1, which is basically, in terms of productivity, you can see the advantage of it. Actually, as the Flutter team had shared in the Flutter code itself, this functionality alone has reduced up to more than 2,000 lines of code by just making it this way instead of this the longer way. So this is basically a productivity advantage of the new version of that. So next we have named arguments anywhere. So let's take an example of this function list.generate, which is basically a generator to generate a list of, let's say, for example, if you have you want to generate a list of integers, like in this case. So this is the function definition, which it requires the length of the list to be generated, then the generator function, then whether the list is growable or not. So initially we had you had to define this, since these parameters are unnamed parameters, had to be organized in such a way that they have to come first before the named parameters. You can see here the named parameters are the ones in curly braces. So in the old way, you had to define this way, and this way, as you can see, is not as readable as this, where we have defined the length, then growable, true, then the function. This one looks more ugly because you don't know where this growable is supposed to be at. And we have not reduced the number of lines. We have not done anything else. We just moved this line here and it looks more readable. I think it's, someone said, I think Martin Fowler said that any fool can write code which a computer can understand, but a good programmer should write code that humans can understand. And if you can see, if you see the difference between this and this, you could see that you can see that this one is more readable. I actually understand better. So productivity-wise, in terms of understanding the code, if someone new was to come into this code base and look through it, they would understand it better than the previous way. So apart from those language features for productivity, we also have productivity tools that have been added in Flutter 2.17. So number one, we have upgrades to the lints package, which in the new version is, I think, 2 point something. So for both Dart lints and Flutter lints. So that in that lints they've added 10 new Dart rules. The advantage of having these rules is to just check your code against the Dart team's best practices. And the advantage of this is that it helps you understand. It helps someone who is new, especially, or even yourself. After some time, you have to understand your code. So it makes it easier to understand the code. If you have those rules and you're following the standards that you've set. In fact, the new templates for defining, for generating new Flutter apps come with the lints already installed for you, so that you write code that is very easy to read, and it follows some kind of guideline. So apart from the new upgrades to Flutter lints, they've also added an easier way to debug secure sockets, basically TCP sockets secured with TLS or SSL. Initially, you couldn't be able to, if you were debugging, you couldn't be able to, let's say, go through the secure data that has been encrypted between the TCP socket and your application. And right now, you can be able to do that. So which is an advantage, because sometimes you need to go through the communication and understand what is going on. If it's encrypted, you couldn't be able to, and now you can. Next, they've also added code samples in API documentation, especially for that IO package. And I think most of the packages, most of the APIs in that. So that makes it easy, because if you just define a function and say maybe this function does ABCD and there's no example, so the code sample help you understand. It's easier to understand a code sample than to just read the documentation itself. So that is an advantage, because you can very easily understand what to do. They've also removed deprecated code in that IO. So I like the way that team works, because once they make a change, they add, and basically you can just run that fix, and it will fix every problem that you have. If you're still using deprecated code, basically it will identify for you, which is a very good productivity tool. It will, if you run that fix after upgrading to the new version of that, you can just be able to see where you need to fix, and it will highlight it for you, and you will just be able to enable to accept the fixes, and everything is fixed for you. Also, another thing that has been done is that in the CLI tools, there's the tool named Pub. Right now, it has been demoted from a high-level tool. Instead, it is run under either, if you're running at that only application will run that pub instead of just pub the way it was initially. And if you're running a Flutter app, it will run Flutter pub. Just that is something to note, because right now it's deprecated, and like I'm sure in the next major version they'll be able to they'll remove it. So just get used to writing that pub instead of just pub. They've also deprecated that doc, which is this was a tool for extracting the documentation of your APIs from the comments that you've added. Let's say you've added comments on top of a function to basically explain the function itself. Instead of that doc, that tool has been renamed. Right now, you just call that doc instead of like the high-level function. It has been removed. So basically, right now, if you run that doc in that 2.17, then it will not run. It will have to run that is the command. Then doc is the argument that will be giving it to it. So finally, I think the new changes will also include broadening platform integration and support. So they've added a new, if you're developing a plugin for that FFI, they've added a new template. So instead of, initially, if you want, let's say, for example, to create a Flutter function, there's Flutter create, then the template will be like Flutter app. And then there's now, if you are developing a plugin, an FFI plugin, you can use Flutter create and use the template plugin FFI, then you will be able to create a new that FFI plugin. Another thing that has also been added is ABI-specific data types. For example, if you're using in C, there's this data type called long, which is basically a long integer. And there are two types depending on which platform you're running on. If you're running on a 32-bit machine, then that means, or device, that means that it's at a 32-bit long. And if you're running in 64-bit device, then it will be a 36-bit long. So right now, Flutter is able to differentiate between the two, and it will run depending on the platform that you're running it on. That means that they have now support for both 64-bit and 32-bit architectures for very specific data types. Another thing that has been added also is improved cleanup code for native. So code cleanup is in that code cleanup is done automatically using that's garbage collector. That it's done automatically. The problem that was there before is that if you're running that FFI and you have, let's say, for example, requested some resources from the lower function, let's say, for example, a C function, you couldn't be able to garbage collect both the DAT code and the C code. Right now, they've added a new method that is able to notify both C and the DAT of the changes that have been made, or if the specific parameter has been let go so that it can be the garbage collected, which is basically an improvement on garbage collection, which, as we know, affects performance. Next, we have support for signing executables. So we know that applications can be compiled into an exe, for example, for Windows, or a Mac OS package or a Linux package. The problem with Windows and Mac is that if you tried installing a package for Windows or on Mac OS, you will see that sometimes it tells you like the publisher of this package is unknown. So that means that that executable is not signed. And usually, like most viruses are like that, they're not signed executables because they don't want to have information attached to that executable. And if you allow such a package to run on your machine, it may be something that is not doing something nefarious. So if you're able to sign your package, Windows or Mac OS, especially Mac OS, is very strict about this. It will refuse to run unsigned executables. And right now, in that, we are able to sign executables, which makes it very easy for you to, if you're deploying to these platforms. And finally, there's support for RISC-V. If you are someone who has done computer science, you understand the difference between the different instruction sets, which is RISC and CISC. See, this reduced instruction set computing and complex instruction set computing. So this is a fairly new and open instruction set standard, which has been defined by a new organization that is actually in charge of RISC-V. So given that it's a fairly new standard and it's Flutter supports it already, let me say that, not Flutter, that supports it. That means that actually the DAT team is burning the midnight oil to make sure that that runs on every platform, which is an advantage to anyone who is running DAT and Flutter, on any platform other than the conventional ones. So I think that is the end of my talk. I don't think I had a lot to talk about. So this is just an introduction to the new version of that. And so finally, as I was introduced before, my name is Danvik. I am an organizer of Flutter Kenya and DroidCon Kenya. Also, I think most of you know me from the packages that I've developed for Flutter, which is Flutter Form Builder, Flutter, and others. Basically, I have about 7 packages out there. So I think most of you know me from that. And I think that is all. My Twitter handle is Danvik Miller, and you can also check out my GitHub. It has some cool repos that you can use. For example, the starter template for Flutter that comes with some things installed. You can check it out. So I think that is all from me. Unless there's maybe a question or anything.
Yes. Thank you so much, Danvik, for that amazing session. It was truly amazing. We've learned a couple of things and new things in Flutter 3. So we have a couple of questions here on the chats. We have Lawrence who's asking, what is the difference between DAT and Flutter? And then we have Denzel who's asking, so if we are creating a custom button, we can use super instead of creating constructors, or super counts as a constructor too. And then can the dat fix be used in Flutter app?
So,
sorry, yeah.
Okay, I think those questions are a bit related. So that is the language. For Lawrence, that is the language that Flutter is built on. So the difference is the language, and Flutter is just an SDK on top of that language. So that is that. I think that also answers the Lawrence question about whether that fix can be used in Flutter, in a Flutter app. So yes, because a Flutter app is essentially a dat program. So that means it can be used there. In case you have upgraded anything, in case you have upgraded that of Flutter, you can just run that fix. It will fix any deprecations or any problems that you're having. And it was actually good when you are migrating from null safe code to null safety. It was actually a very good tool that was developed there. So if you can use super instead of creating constructor, or super console constructor too. So for Denzel, so the thing about super constructor is, let's say for example, when defining any widget in Flutter, you usually you have to define a key for that widget that you're defining. But your widget is a custom class that extends the Flutter the let's say stateless successful widget. You cannot use super instead of your widget. You just create your widget, but instead of doing all this, where you have to pass the keys and every function to the parent class, which is the stateless or stateful widget, you instead do super dot key instead of doing this and then calling super aside, other than after declaring the constructor. So that is the difference. This reduces the number of lines of code, because you have to, instead of doing all this code, you just do it in the constructor. And we also saw this there's this dot used within the constructor, which is just to pass the value to the member function, which is an advantage because it saves the number of lines of code that someone can use. I don't know if I've answered your question specifically, but the thing is, you're not really replacing your custom button, but you're just declaring it and passing the data very easily to the parent class. Sorry.
Cool. I hope you've answered. We have another question from Kagame. Is asking, please explain what the dat FFI is and possible scenarios it can be used. So, in some instances, let's say for example, you are running your Flutter app on Windows, and you have a very good function that is defined in C that you want, instead of putting that function and running that function again, it's just the same way that instead of you developing your own package and using it, you can pull the package from pub.dev and use it if it's that package. Now, if you're using let's say a C function that has everything defined in it, you can can call that function from C, and basically you're able to get it basically returns the value from that function. Let's say, for example, you're integrating something that is something like, I don't know, a good example. Let me just use this example. I don't know if it's the best example, but let's say, for example, you have
a function in Windows that deals with, let's say, something like the camera or something like or files that is defined in C, not in Dart or Flutter. Now, if you want to call that function and use it instead of writing a Dart function that will do the same, you can just call that C function inside Dart or Flutter. I don't know if that is clear.
I think that's much clear enough. Yes,
Okay.
you said it's clear. And then we have another question that is asking, can Dart or Flutter be integrated with Kotlin language?
Yes, so much. Like that. So especially Flutter was developed to integrate with Android and iOS. Those were the first two platforms that were supported. But things like, let's say, camera, let's say sensors in your device, they are written. The code already is written in Kotlin or in Swift. But that is able to use the camera in your phone because it can be able to call functions that are already in Kotlin or in Java or in Swift or in Objective-C. That is basically how that can be able to access some of this functionality that has been defined in a different language and be able to access it. And that is what it was built for. So I think that answers your question, Lawrence, unless there's any other.
Yeah, I think that answers. Thank you so much for your time, Danvik. That was an amazing session. I don't see any more questions from here, so we can proceed. Yeah. He said it's okay. So thank you very much, Danvik, for updating us on the latest Flutter 0.3. We are really honored to have you and speak to us as well as hosting the event. So from here, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, who is Magdalene. Magdalene is an amazing developer. She is a Flutter developer, and she's coming to talk to us about Flutter 3 and Firebase app. I hope all of you at some point have played around with Firebase and wanted to see how can I integrate Firebase with Flutter, and Magdalene is here to fire us up with Flutter. Thank you so much, and kindly feel free to start your session. Welcome, Magdalene.
Thank you so much, Candy. I hope you guys can hear me.
Yes,
it's such an honor to do this. Yeah, I'm not going to be perfect, but I'll try to share as much knowledge as I can. Yeah, so you guys feel free to correct me, or I'm still learning. So so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so we're going to talk about Flutter 3, getting Firebase up. Like Candy said, we're going to get fired up, hopefully. So you can see the little thing is going around there. It's an i5. So guys, I hope you're going to enjoy the session. So
yes.
So as we know, most of us developers, when we're starting with the whole journey, personally, I started when I was doing my school project, I did it with Firebase. So I believe everyone has interacted with it. And from the research that some people have done, shows that 62% of Flutter developers use Firebase. And this makes it I think Google saw this and they were like, why would we not incorporate some of the things to make life easier for the Flutter developers? And they came up with a Flutter thing on the Firebase. Let me just show you what they added. Just Just a minute. So when you come to the Firebase console, let's say you add a new project. Once you've added a project, then sorry about that. Yeah, let me just pick this one that I just made. Yeah, then let's say we want to add like a new app to integrate with Firebase. Once you come here, they've added the Flutter icon there. It wasn't there initially. These ones were the ones that existed, and now it makes life easier for us. We just have to like write one code that will work on both iOS and Android, so you don't have to like do configuration in the build.gradle file on Android and then in the info plist for iOS. So you just have to configure them in one place. Actually, they are auto-generated for you once you add the plugins. Yeah, so back to slides. So when Google I/O happened, they announced the graduation of Flutter and Firebase, where all plugins were moved to general availability. Then they shared the Flutter support and documentation, which you'll find on firebase.google.com. And once you choose on the platform, you're able to see all the documentations for Flutter. There, you're able to do release, monitoring, build apps. Like Flutter is fully now supported by, like everything is available for you, like the steps and how to configure everything. And like it's very understandable once you get to the site. Then they also did the improved crash reporting. Using the Crashlytics package, you're able to track, monitor, and fix stability issues faster. You're able to log them. You're able to view them through the logs and know like which line of code is throwing which error, so that you're able also to see like how are you going to fix it without having to really debug. You can see it on Firebase. Yeah, then Crashlytics has also enabled receiving of alerts where critical issues arise, and this enables us to just fix them like on the go, so that they don't affect us like in the near future, and also the customers who are already using the apps. Then so the Flutter Firebase merge helps to accelerate the application development from a single code base. You don't have to configure differently. So first things first, we can head to add the project. Like I said, get my name, the Flutter Firebase app. Then now you're redirected to add the Flutter apps. You can see before we didn't have the Flutter icon. Now at the moment we have it because Firebase supports it. So we've integrated with it. So you're able to add your Flutter apps and just configure them directly. Then once you do that, once you add the Flutter app, now you install and test the Firebase CLI. And the instructions are given here. The link, let me just show you. Like the firebase.google.com, once you go to the docs, it has everything for you. Let's say you want to do like authentication. You can see the different platforms are listed there, and I've added the Flutter one. So you're able to get all the guidelines on how to do everything from here. Add the packages, Firebase out, run it, and that's just like, it has made life easier for us. Like everything is just explained in details from these whole documentation. So that's more like it. Okay, then we create a new Flutter project, then install and run the Flutter Fire CLI by running these commands. This one you can run the first command. You can run it from any command line. Then the second one you either run it from your Visual Studio Code or Android Studio. Then it will list all the applications that you have on Firebase, the ones that you want to probably check analytics for or something. Then it will ask you to select which platform. Then it adds the configuration to this file here. Once you do that, for instance, I ran the command here, Flutterfire configure. Then I selected they gave me this ID project. It's called Flutter Firebase app. So once it showed me I have like 3 Firebase projects on Firebase. Then yeah, I'm able to select the platforms from there. Then once I do the Flutter Fire, it generates this file here. Which generates different IDs for the different platforms, web, Android, iOS, macOS, yeah, the platforms that Flutter supports at the moment. So it generates that. Then in case I add any plugins, they are added to this generated plugin registrant. Yeah. So the Firebase core, of course, because we have Firebase in it, yeah. So the plugins are added there. Then yeah, we have to initialize it in the main.dat file. Initialize Firebase and just do like, depending on the current platform that you're in, that shows that you just need to do it from the single code base. You don't need to do configuration for iOS or Android. So just initialize it from there. Then, so I did like just a few things in here for Crashlytics just to see. And so we install first the Firebase Crashlytics package. Then we of course build the whole project. Then now, yeah, we configure the crash handlers. Let me just open the project. So initialize the Firebase. Then yeah, override on error with the Firebase Crashlytics. Then anytime I just did a sample of what they've done on the documentation. You can follow that through, and yeah, I think it's just a basic understanding of how the errors are going to get stored on Firebase. So I just did like where we were able to just click on a button and then we see it's supposed to throw an exemption. So yeah, once we do this, let's just test this. It's running. Then let's come out check our app, because we've already like through Flutter Fire, it's connected. So just check on Firebase Crashlytics. Then we're able to see all the crashes that we have, what caused them, and which line of code has the error from here. Yeah, and who are experiencing such kind of errors. So we have 2 users, 6 crashes, stuff like that. So let's see. Let's just filter here today. So from this, line 54 shows, yeah, I think this should be it. We're on top of a button, it threw an exemption. Then we come to logs. Yeah, on top. Then you're able to download your log, able to view the stack trace and all that. Yeah, and more details. Yeah, you can just explore that and just, yeah, find out all about the Crashlytics. We can do another one. If we change, for instance, I have, I'm calling an API here. Just change this to, you can just run it. Check. Sorry. So we're able to get a list. In case we change, let's just comment that out. Then we run it. We're supposed to get an exemption and it's supposed to crash. So it's supposed to record it on the Crashlytics on Firebase. Then yeah, just show us like which line through what error and all that. So in case you're in a production environment and of course you're not debugging, that means it's supposed to just record somewhere at least and show it. So yeah, so it's supposed to throw this kind of error. List invalid value range is empty. Yeah, because we didn't get the count for the whole list. That's why it throws that error. But at least we're able to see it on Firebase because we can't do like debugging on production. So you're able to just record that on like on Crashlytics. You're able to view like at which point did the application crash. So yeah. So basically, let me just change it back. Yeah, so once we've done that, let me just continue. Yeah, so it recorded the errors on Crashlytics and that's it. So basically, like Flutter and Firebase, mostly what they did is they offer the support for us. The documentation is available on firebase.google.com. Like everything on Flutter is just there. Like yeah, like once you get here, it makes it easier to just do everything here. Once you come to Crashlytics, for instance, then let's go to get started. You can see you can choose which platform to use and Flutter is included there. Then it guides you through how the steps are supposed to be and how to install the Firebase CLI, to install the Firebase tools so that you're able to use it, and yeah, just install all the plugins. Everything is explained here, so that's improved documentation for us, and yeah, to help us through the development process. Then also the improved crash reporting, which has 3 major like big updates. The steps are reduced because that means we don't have to do the iOS or Android configurations. We can just do like one configuration. It can be used by both. Then logging the errors, and then it describes like where you can get them, at which line of code, and this helps to resolve them at a better time before the problem gets out of hand. Then we have the revamped backend crash analyzer to group Flutter crashes more intuitively, and because they have come with like certain characteristics in which errors act, so that they are able to group the errors in a certain way, yeah, to help the team understand better on how to solve the problem. So yeah, I think that's basically it about Flutter and Firebase coming merging up. Yeah, so any questions?
Thank you so much, Magdalene. Oh yeah, my camera is back on. Yeah, thank you so much, Magdalene, for the amazing session. We have a couple of questions here. We have one from Lawrence, who's asking what's the difference between Firebase and backend for app?
Okay, so Firebase, I think we prefer Firebase because we build applications which are like have a fully managed back end. We don't have to like come up with back end on our own. It's like you just have to call it, and it makes life easier in a way because yeah, configurations have already been set there. So yeah, it's easier to work with Firebase. But with the other like backend, you have to come up with certain configuration, you have to come up with APIs on your own. Yeah, so I believe when you like really starting, Firebase will be sometimes the way to go because yeah, you can just have like a real-time database there. You can use the Firestore. There's also the authentication. You don't have to do it all on your own. Like Firebase just makes it easier for you to handle all this stuff, and yeah, it's like slows down the whole process, fastens the whole process of application development. Yeah, when you use Firebase.
Amazing. I think you've actually answered Lawrence's question, who was saying he's starting on Flutter, and was asking what backend you would have recommended for a starter. And I think you've answered the Firebase bit. All right. Okay, cool. So I don't think we have more questions on that. So, yes. Thank you so much for your time, Magdalene. Thank you for speaking on our event. And by the way, we are all learning, so yeah, it's good to have you.
Thank you so much, Kendi. Yeah, it was such an honor doing this. Yeah.
All right, amazing. So for the next session, maybe I could try sharing my screen. For the next session is one of that time that we all adore and like. It's time for us to play a little game. And I will be taking you guys through it. So let me start it off. Ooh. We are getting ready. Oh, sorry, I'm not presenting. Oh my God. Cool. So we have this amazing game that we've come together as the organizers for Flutter, and we want to like juggle your minds a little. Please, you can either scan the QR, or you just enter the game pin. I think scanning the QR is faster and much better. Just go to kahoot.it and then you enter this game pin. I'll be seeing you guys join so that we can start the game. And we have amazing news from MJ. She is gonna tell us what the winners will get afterwards. I see Sababu Baseti. Amazing. I see you guys joining in. Okay, I'll give you how many more minutes? Probably 1 or 2. Yeah, and please give yourself nice nicknames. We need interesting nicknames. Like Mahad is quite, yeah. Like the Grim Reaper. I hope you're coming to rip off the game and make sure you win. Okay. So I think that's it. So let's start off with the game. This is the Google I/O extended Flutter. So the first question, when was Flutter first released by Google? Was it 2020, 2012, 2010, 2018, or 2017? We have 4 answers already. Let's wait for the rest. Minutes are almost over. Yes, the correct answer was 2017. In 2018 is when they introduced it in the market. I remember. All right, let's go to the next question. Hey, Eric Mooley. Okay, cool. Which was the initial name for Flutter? Was it Skia or was it Fuse, that name? Was it Hummingbird or was it Sky? One more second and the correct answer is Sky. Oh, somebody said Skia. No, the very initial name was Sky. Hummingbird, no. All right, let's see who won. Eric and Sam, you guys relax. Let's get the next question. Which is the current version of Flutter? This one seems very easy because the answers are coming in so fast. Very quick. One more second, and the correct answer is 3.0.3. This is what we are currently introducing to you guys, and that's the correct answer. I see Grim is coming up, and Mahad also. Daniko. Great. All right, let's go to the next question. What is the name of the Dutch mascot? It's very easy. Don't overthink it, guys. Let's see. One more second. Yes, the correct answer is Dash and not Dashlet. I put Dashlet there to just confuse you for fun. Sam is getting down, and we see Daniko and Grim coming up. Eric Muli, you need to lose at least one. So, how many colors does Flutter logo have? How many colors does Flutter logo have? Yeah, probably more than the answer. If you said 2, you are absolutely correct. If you said 1, if you said 5 colors, 5 colors? No. Ulisikia wapi? The next question is, which functions takes the given widget and make it the root of the widget tree? Is it set state? Is it the main? Is it build? Or is it run up? Is this one a hard question? Let's see. The correct question is run up. Run up always takes the widget and make it the root of the widget tree. Let's see who are these winners. Congratulations, Daniko is going up. Mahad is also going up. I see Meg, you've come to. So we have true or false question. That version 2.17.5 is the current that version. That is absolutely correct. The current that version is 2.17.5. Okay, I see Daniko is leading. So which is not a type of test run in Flutter? Is it integration test, unit test, main test, or widget test? Don't overthink it, guys. Just key in your answer. The 7 of you. Yes. Integration test is a type of test that runs the whole application. So if you said integration test, you're wrong. I've never heard of main tests. So yeah. Cool. Grim coming back. Amazing. And we have the second last question. Which of the following are the best editors of Flutter development? Where do you write your Flutter code, guys? Is it on Android Studio, Xcode, IntelliJ, or all of the above? Let's see. Correct. All of the above is the correct. We have developers who write their Flutter app on Android Studios. Others prefer Xcode, and others prefer IntelliJ. All right. Let's see. Sababu is coming back, and Meg is also really coming up close. Daniko is going down. All right, let's see if Daniko, Mahad, or Grima are gonna win the game. So this is the final question. To access and manipulate the cloud database is possible with which of the following options? Is it Firebase database? Is it none of the above? Is it both Firebase or SQLite? Or both Firebase and SQLite database? Amazing. See all the answers. Firebase database is the correct answer. And somebody answered both SQLite and Firebase? No. Okay, so moment of truth. Let's see who won the game. For this, Daniko came at position 3. We are at Meg at position 2 and position 1. Let's wait. Drum rolls. So we are really. Oh, we have runners up. 2. Okay, great. Thank you so much, guys, for participating in this game. So for the next session, we are going to invite our very amazing speaker from Dubai. And let's see who's going to introduce next speaker. We have MJ who will be introducing our next speaker. And I see we have some questions on the chat. Let's read. Oh, there are no questions? All right, so I'll give Maureen the stage to introduce the next speaker, as well as tell us what she's been thinking about the questions and the answers given. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks so much, Kendi. That was amazing. Really learned a lot from it because it's quite a way of competing, at the same time trying to learn, and at the same time breaking the monotony. So really good of you. And for our 3 winners, we had like really amazing gifts to issue to our winners. So we'll get in touch on specifically what gifts we can give you and how you will receive them. So Kendi, just take the notes for the 3 winners.
Yes.
And I don't understand how Sam Baraka was in the game. I thought he should not play it.
That's why we have runners up.
Okay, yeah, no worries. We'll still award you some, don't worry. So yes, I can see Eric saying that we'll disqualify some, but we shall sit down as a committee and decide if he really needs the award. But to the rest of our winners, don't worry. We shall get in touch and tell you about what gifts we have for you today. And on that note, I'm going to hand it over to our third speaker, who is our last speaker, and her name is Samia. Samia is a Flutter developer. She's currently based in Dubai, and she works with BB Array. I don't know, I'm not sure what is it in full, but she'll give us like a full in-depth description of what she really is and where she's working at and what she has for us today. She's going to touch on the game toolkit, the casual game toolkit. So really excited for it and looking forward to learning from her. Hi, Samia.
Hi, Maureen. Thank you so much. That was a very nice introduction. So
thank you and feel welcomed.
Sure. Thank you. And so, yeah, let me just share my screen. So, hello, everyone. My name is Samia Ashraf. I am a Flutter developer working for an IT startup here in Dubai called as BB Array. So BB Array is Brew Buddy Array. So I have been working with Flutter for over 2 years now, and I love exploring new topics and teaching them to other developers. And Flutter game development is one such topic that is really interesting, and sadly, due to limited resources, very few people talk about it. But in this year's Google I/O update, there are some exciting additions in game development, and that is what we will be exploring today. So this is our agenda for today. We will start with a quick introduction on what is Flutter game development and why Flutter can be considered for games when there are other game building softwares. Why should you consider an app development platform for building games? Following which, we will look at some of the community contributions towards Flutter games. And then we will look at the different types of Flutter games and what is Flutter Casual Games Toolkit, that is the main I/O update, what it is and why did Google decide to bring that as an update this year, and how can it help the existing game developers and also developers who are just getting started. Then finally, we will look at a small game called Google Io Pinball that was launched ahead of the update this year. And finally, we will just discuss what we learned today. So a quick introduction on the Casual Games Toolkit. So as we all know, Flutter is an open source platform mainly for app development, where you can build apps for mobile, web, desktop, and even embedded apps. And it is now having an increase in popularity towards game development also. So one of the challenges that is faced by the game developers that Google is trying to tackle is the lack of resources for building Flutter games, which is actually true. Because if you try to Google Flutter games, the resources that you will find will be quite limited. And that is because the game development was never really an official use case until this year's I/O update. So that's why Google tried to work on it, and they came up with the Casual Games Toolkit. So it's more like a template to get you started with your games. So yeah, and that's why this year's I/O update is big for game developers and also for Flutter developers that are just planning to get started with building games. And if you are also someone that is trying to get into Flutter game development, then hopefully this session will give you an idea of how you can get started with the resources. So one very common question that game developers often get asked is, why Flutter for games? Why should you consider an app development platform for something like building games? And there are other game development softwares like Unity, etc., that also build games and that builds the high level games. So why should we consider Flutter? So a study was conducted on Flutter developers that had already released some games, and they shared their experience. So they said that Flutter was simple to learn and easy to use, especially if they were building a casual game. Building the UI part was a lot simpler and it saved them a lot of time as well. So if you compare Flutter with other game development softwares, building the UI could be faster, and you can also save up a lot of time as you can reuse the widgets here. So you write a custom widget and then you use this widget in other parts of the game. So you can actually save up time with that. The next was to the ability to look into the framework source code and having full control of the canvas. So let's say you come across a game repository and that has multiple features, and your game also uses some of those features. So you can explore the source code and you can take it as a reference. Like for example, if you want to add the mobile ads SDK, so you can refer that part of the code and then you can come up with your own code for that. So in that way, you will have full control of the canvas. And some developers consider Flutter's audio capabilities superior to other cross-platform UI kits. So audio integration was one such feature that Google is trying to improve in every update. So because for Flutter games, because when you talk about a game, the audio integration is extremely important, as it will improve the experience, the user experience. And the ability to design a widget and then reusing that widget in other parts of the game. So the data persistence will be ensured. Data persistence is when you can use something over and over in the program without actually putting in more effort. So just like reusing the widgets. And Flutter is also portable. That means you will write your code once and the game compiles and runs on multiple platforms. So based on all of these key points, we can say that Flutter can actually be a good choice for game development. And these are all the key points that were shared by those developers. So yeah, this will give you an idea of hopefully getting started with building at least simpler games using Flutter. So now let us look at some of the community contributions. So up until Google I/O 2022, there were games in Flutter. In fact, there were multiple games such as 4-Pix One Word Game and also a game like Kelimelik. So games did exist before this year's update, and the community effort called as such as the Flame engine. So Flame is a package that was designed to help building more games and to make the game development process smoother. So Flame, what is Flame? So Flame by definition is a minimalist 2D game engine that was built on top of Flutter. If I had to define Flame, I would say that Flame is a library of solutions to tackle problems that arise during game development. Now, these problems can be, let's say, the collision detection of different game objects, or even the physics of the games. So also the animations. These are the features that will be used in high-level games, and you cannot just use the Flutter code for this. You will need some packages like the Flame packages to control these features. So that is where you can use the Flame plugin. So yeah, so Flame will offer features such as animations and then physics, collision detection, and more. So now let us look at the different types of Flutter games that we have. We can categorize games as two types. First can be the app-like games. So app-like games include casual games, such as the board games, the card games, even puzzles, and even strategy games. So these kind of games respond to a user input. And this user input can be either a screen tap or a text input. So you will see here in the video that every time the user is tapping on the screen, the game is responding to that tap. So that's what app-like games will work. They are fairly simpler games, and you can either take like a couple of hours or even a couple of days to build games like this, because the code will be a lot simpler. The next type of game that we have is video games. So video games include arcade style games. That includes shooting games, racing games, and so on. And you will notice that in such kind of action-based games, you will need a continuous input device like a joystick or a controller. You cannot use the tapping on the screens because the input has to be continuous like a joystick. And such games require high-level animations and even collision detection of different game objects. And all of these features can be achieved by using the packages such as Flame package. So you might want to explore and plan every module ahead of building the game, because since these are high-level games, you will have to explore all of the features that Flame has to offer so that you can think of how you can make use of those features. So I would say that this type of games require more planning, and the code here will be a lot more complex also when compared to the app-like games. So with that, let's look at what exactly is Flutter Casual Games Toolkit and why was it considered to be an update in this year's IO update. So a growing community of developers use Flutter, especially for casual game development, and they take advantage of the hardware accelerated graphics that the Flutter provides. And Flutter becomes a great choice for user interaction games, like, for example, simple games like puzzles and even word games. And for games that use game loop or a little more complex games, you can use packages like Flame. Flame can be a helpful tool here. So even if you want to build simple games, you can use Flutter, or for complex games also, you can use Flutter with Flame packages to achieve the high-level features. So no matter what type of game you're building, you can always consider Flutter and make it work as per your requirements. So Casual Games Toolkit can be considered as a resource that was provided by Google for the Flutter game developers. It's almost like a reference point that you can use. So now let us look at what is included in the Flutter Casual Games Toolkit and how it is going to help the game developers. So if you see a video here, this is what the games toolkit looks like. This is from the website. If you click on the get the template button, it will take you to a GitHub repository which contains a README file and which will tell you what the repository contains, the different features like pre-integrated modules like the in-app features, in-app purchases, sound and music integration, mobile ads SDK, Crashlytics support, and many more. So this is a complete repository that you can make use to build your next app, next game. So along with the existing resources and the new ones, Google has come up with this template to speed up the game development process. And this sample repo can be almost like a starter project for your next game. So it comes with a full repository of code. And so it also has the steps that will tell you how you can make it run. So it's very helpful actually. And yeah, so all the new features like mobile ads, in-app purchases, Crashlytics support, all of these are there in that template. This template is open source and you can use the repository to make changes as per your game requirements. And if you see this video here, this is actually how the game runs on the emulator, how the repository runs on the emulator. It's almost like a starter game project, a very simple game. And if I wanted to build a simple game, I will just make the changes in this code, and it will work for me. This also has the audio integration and some features like state management and that. So you can take that as a reference, and even you can make similar changes to it. So with that, let's talk about what Google Io Pinball game is. So Google Io Pinball is a Flutter web game that was launched ahead of the I/O event this year. So it is a Flutter web game that will work on any platform that has a browser. So this game is an example that you can create such powerful games with Flutter. So if you see the picture here, this is what the game actually looks like. So it's almost like a pinball game, and you will also see the Flutter dash as one of the characters. And this Google Io Pinball game uses Flutter and also Firebase as the Google products. So it uses Firebase as the hosting platform and also to track the high score. The source code is available, which means that you can use it as a reference for your next big game, or you can even make some changes and as per your requirement. So you can take the existing features and also add it to your own game. Like for example, the high score tracking part or even the hosting platform. These certain features also you can take and add it to your game. So the Google Io Pinball is heavily dependent on the Flame package. So it uses Flame and its packages to run the game. So some of its packages include Forge 2D and Flame Block. So what is Forge 2D? I talked about the collision detection being one of the problems in building games. So Forge 2D is a package that can be used for collision detection between game objects. And it is also used to power the physics of the game. So this is the package that controls the physics of the game. And Flame Block is a package that bridges blocks with Flame components. So what does that mean? Flame Block is used to keep track of number of rounds left to play like how it is in a pinball game, and any bonuses that was achieved through the game. And also it is used to store the current game score. So that was about the Google Io Pinball game. So this game was released also as a note that you can build high-level games also using Flutter. And the game will be available to play at this URL. You can play the game. And this game has a lot of features also. So you can explore that, and maybe your game will be using one of the features from this game. So you can take it as a reference. And so what we learned from this session, so we learned about why and how we can consider Flutter for games. So the types of Flutter games that we can have simple games like the app-like games, which require fairly less coding. And you can also have video games, the high-level games, along with some packages like the Flame package, some community contributions that were made, and how Google understood that the resources were quite limited. So they introduced the Flutter Casual Games Toolkit repository, which you can take as reference for your next game. and also the Google Io Pinball game that was launched ahead of the update, which is also an excellent point of reference. And yeah, these are the references that I have taken. So with that, we come to the end of the session. I hope you got an idea of what Flutter Games is, how we can use it, and hopefully you will start building more games and maybe explore on this topic. So yeah, thank you. Do we have any questions?
I don't think so. I can't see any questions on the chat.
Okay.
Sam, are there any questions on the stream? Just a comment. I can see a comment from Meshach, who says he's been building a crossword app with Flutter, which is quite nice.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And all the best to you. I hope you will be able to finish it and maybe launch it soon so that you can share it with us.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, I think as you mentioned, he says that the number of resources available to access is quite limited.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Hopefully we can all explore, and then maybe we can also build certain resources. So
there's a new question. So Kagame is asking, are there any prerequisites before developing a game on Flutter? Basically, developing on game dev with Flutter, sorry.
Developing.
Are there any prerequisites?
So if you are talking about the smaller features, so Flutter, just like how we have widget of the week, there are also smaller features that Flutter has explained in their website. So yeah, we can refer those features. So I hope that answered your question, Kagam. The next question is, how complex or how can we plan to make a game app? So it depends on your requirement. You can plan a complex game, just like how we talked about the Google Io Pinball. That is a very high level game, a very complex game that uses multiple features. So you will have to plan accordingly. And when you're planning, you also have to refer the Flame packages to see if your requirement has a solution in the Flame. So yeah, in that way, you can plan on building the game.
Okay. Any other question? I think I don't see any other questions. So
Hey, and Vic, sorry to chime in. I think I saw someone asking if it's integrated with Firebase test labs. So I assumed that was that question was to Samia, if I'm not wrong. Or Kevin, if you'd like to expound more on the question, feel free to do so. But in the meantime, Samia, go ahead.
Okay. So is it also integrated with Firebase test labs? I'm not sure, but I hope you're talking about, I think you're talking about the Google Io Pinball. So yes, it is using the Firebase. It is using Firebase as a hosting platform, and also the Firestore to keep track of the score, and also the bonuses that you will get when playing the game. So for all of that, it is using the Firebase. So yeah, about the template. Yes, the template starter pack that I showed you. Yes, it does include the Firebase test labs as well. So it has actually almost everything in Firebase. So it comes integrated with almost everything. So you have to make the changes as per your requirement. But yes, it comes with the Firebase test labs.
Okay, that's great. I have one question, Samia.
Yes.
So for the game's casual toolkit, would you recommend, especially for someone who'd love to venture into game development, would you recommend someone to use Flutter at this point?
So I will assume that you do have some, let's say that they have a little experience and knowledge on using Flutter, and they want to get started with Flutter games. So yes, of course, I would recommend them to get started, because initially the resources were quite limited, but now with the resources being added, it will hopefully be an easier process for them also to build the game. But yes, I will of course recommend them to use Flutter for building games. I hope that answered your question, Maureen.
Yeah, got it. Thanks.
Welcome.
Okay, so there being another question, thank you very much, Samia, for sharing with us. It's been an interesting topic. I think I will have now confidence to venture into game development, see what I can do with Flutter.
That's great. That's great. That's amazing to hear. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about Flutter games. I think it's a very less touched topic. So I hope we will all now start exploring on Flutter games. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So I would like to also thank our speakers for the day, Magda, Samia, and for just giving time. I know that your time may be of value, but you gave us time to at least talk to us and share your knowledge. Thank you very much. Also, that everyone who attended, thank you very much for your input. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing questions, because I see some of us may be afraid of asking questions, but those who asked, at least maybe we didn't think of those questions, and you actually asked, and they gave us, the speakers gave us more clarification. So thank you for your attendance and participation. I also like to thank Flutter Kisumu for collaborating with us on this IO extended event. Your input has been so great in helping us organize this, and we hope to collaborate more in future. And also now I'd like to thank the individual organizers of the event, Sam, Eric, Kendi, Maureen, Isaac, and all the others. I think Okot, I don't know if he's here. So I think if I forgot to mention him, I'm sorry. But thank you very much for the organizers for